The Aeolak does remind me a lot of another gun from nothing more than appearance, but 21% crit chance, 33% status chance, does have an alternate fire mode that launches an explosive projectile that hopefully I'm not going to like as much as the other one after putting some work into it. Because to be fair, this thing's pretty lethal even after its first former. So it's time to kind of put this away for now and try this because it has better accuracy, better fire rate, bigger magazine, longer reload, but more importantly, more crit, more status, and just a tiny little bit less damage, though it doesn't have the alternate fire that makes the Ultinox so much fun. But with the extra crit chance and everything else, this thing should be just that little bit better. Mainly because it also has the ability to basically do this. And that's already made more damage. And then this. And that's made even more damage. So we'll give it one of these. And that's made even more damage. And then, to be fair, I'm still on the hunt for a Riven for this. So I've kind of settled on a not too overly complicated type of build, aiming more towards the status side, but still having over 50% crit chance with a 5.1 times multiplier by, yet again, utilising the dual stat elemental mods. All of them, even though this one's all the way over here, that's because the two Vs are in the middle, did former this twice, so it now has 4 Vs, with obviously Point Strike and Vital Sense in there. You can, of course, Silas mod, throw an arcane on these to make it even better. But after playing with it, it's things like Primed Firestorm, or just the normal Firestorm. The primed one, of course, having a 66% blast radius for its alternate fire mode, is where the big differences are made, and also at the same time why I'm not using it. Because the alternate fire mode, yeah, it actually deals basically, I want to say the same amount of damage, but it does have a huge radius to it to begin with, but it does take time to charge up. So mods like, of course, Fire Rate mod, Shred is going to be kind of useless because obviously it has Punch Through on it, and Punch Through on this thing is just going to be kind of useless because you want it to detonate when it hits something. But Speed Trigger should also kind of increase this, but sacrificing damage, this thing, I wouldn't put it high up on the damageable weaponry. It doesn't have a great deal of damage to it. I mean, this thing is basically doing what would it be the equivalent of 1027 damage, with not a great deal of that being actual elemental, close to about 400 of it. Which still has me wondering where the other 600 damage comes from, because, well, with impact of 39.8, puncture of 61.1 and slash of 45, that doesn't add up to the other 600 damage that this thing for some reason seems to be having. That's because, of course, with split chamber in there, because it is a full auto fire, it does take it to a 1.9 times multi-shot, nearly said multiplier, which does account for where that extra damage has come from, because, yeah, that's why I'm kind of getting a little bit sick of running multi-shot mods, because it doesn't kind of explain this in the stats, that it uses the multi-shot and increases the number, so really it's not doing 1027 damage, it's actually doing closer to 540.6 per round. But that is basically doubled because it's 1.9, which means, well, it's only a 90% multi-shot with split chamber, so if it was 100%, it would be a 2 times multi-shot, it would be firing 2 shots all the time, but it's not, it's only firing 2 every, basically I'm going to say every second shot should be a guaranteed multi-shot. Being auto-fire is great, but the charge attack, it's not going to be shooting that second round every time. And once you can kind of realise this and you figure out, okay, so that means it's only doing 540 damage, that's why this thing has been massively overlooked when it comes to the weapons that came out with the Angels of the Zariman update. Because, well, her signature weapon, Gaia's, the Ultinox, yeah, okay, it has less crit chance, has less status, doesn't do any of the impact, puncture, slash. It's basically just an elemental weapon, and it's the fact that that has a multi-shot of 1.2 on it that does kind of weird me out just a tiny little bit. Choosing between this and that would be hard to kind of determine what you kind of want to do. I mean, yes, this thing does have a base radiation of 5%. That is why radiation was kind of bigger, and radiation's 204, whereas viral is 190, but they've got what would basically be 120% extra to each one each. But it's base radiation, so I kind of increased that and added viral, but viral and radiation seem to be used on most things I do these days, unless I'm going up against heavily armoured enemies, in which case obviously you want to swap that for corrosive anyway. But this thing, it has been massively overlooked, yes, because it's not just the Ultinox that came out. The Fenmore came out at exactly the same time, and this has a total base damage of 60, that's got a total base damage of 140. The only thing that this does that doesn't do is impact. And the stats, well, this is still more status based than that is, even though you want to build that thing for status once you get it to its 5th evolution, and that's what everybody kind of concentrated on with this update, and I will agree, the Fenmore is just better than this in every single way, but you have to land the headshots, evolve it, and this you've basically just got to, and this is where I wish that the alternate fire mode was changeable, because as good as the normal fire mode is, it doesn't do as much damage as it kind of needed to be. It's almost like the Aeolak was a second thought to anything else. I am glad that they released more than just one weapon in this update. Of course I am. The Ultinox is of course her signature weapon, then there's the Fenmore, and yeah, this thing just seemed like something that put behind a reward pool to make people actually do the bounties. And that's pretty much exactly what it is. It's not a bad weapon. It is literally described as an unusual automatic rifle, feels strangely familiar, and has 2 fire modes, because that's pretty much what it is. To me, it looks a lot like the Hind, but that is a single fire rifle. This is a full auto fire rifle, and yeah, it's not that bad of a weapon. It's just massively overlooked, and to be fair, the way that you have to get the parts for this makes it a weapon that basically people are going to get used as mastery fodder, and because it's so annoying to get a hold of, most people aren't going to give it another chance. They're just going to level it up, put it away, and done with, because the Fenmore is there. If they had have released this at a different time, it might have actually stood a chance of being a weapon that people went, well, this is actually pretty decent and isn't too bad. It's good up until about level, really I want to say level 75 to 80 is when it starts to really kind of struggle. It can do some steel path stuff, but really wouldn't recommend that with this thing, because it does start to struggle really badly. It'll take them out, but ooh, you're going to have kind of a bad day with it. If you can keep them at range, it'll be fine, but as soon as they get a little bit closer, even the alternate fire mode won't save you that well. There are much better weapons out there than this, but actually, possibly the worst thing about this is the fact the blueprint is behind the level 4 bounty. You're talking level 110 to 115 enemies, and then you have the stock and the receiver blueprints hidden behind the Void Flood rotation C, with the barrel behind Void Cascade rotation C yet again, which means 10% drop chance. Supposedly every 10 rotation Cs you're pretty much expected to get it, which means you've got to do it 10 times to rotation C. Yeah, you could be lucky and get it straight away, same as the actual blueprint for this. Would be nice if it had more than a 6% drop chance. I've literally gotten more of the Hesper blueprints than I have this thing doing those bounties, because obviously that's where Gara's blueprint drops as well. So the Hesper seems to drop a lot more than this thing does, which is also kind of a huge shame, but at the same time that is actually a really useful melee weapon. Possibly, maybe, even better than the Praedos itself. But then we take into account the fact that you need, what is it, 15 Void Plume quills to build it, 5 per part. One of them needs, I do believe, it's the receiver. Needs 5 Entrati Lanthorns at the same time. Yeah, these are things you could quite easily get a hold of while playing the game, but that's just because of how hard this thing is to get a hold of, which kind of made me hopeful that this was going to become just an insanely kind of powerful weapon, but it just, at the end, seemed kind of, dare I say, lackluster. But if you don't have the Fenmore, this thing is actually an amazing weapon. But once you realise the Fenmore and the Alternox came out at the same time, big shame on this for this weapon. It's it feels overlooked. And with that, because I can say that over and over again, it's not going to change the fact that it is. We'll leave this off here. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.